You know what? Real credit restoration sucks, but that's why it works. Let me explain that. Now, of course, credit restoration is a process of not just repairing, but rebuilding one's credit profile. All right. Now, it's essential that for those looking to secure loans, buy a home, start a business, all of that. But credit restoration is misunderstood. Many people believe that by fixing their credit is as simple as hiring a company that promises fast results, but reality is far from that. True credit restoration is challenging, it's time consuming, and requires personal responsibility. However, that is exactly why it works. The difficulty of the process ensures long term financial success rather than a temporary fix. All right. So, the I'm going to get biblical for a minute. I hope you guys don't mind. But there's a lesson that comes from the Bible that I think is really in the real world. It has nothing to do with spirituality, but I think it has a spiritual basis. There is a saying that you have to go through adversity to grow through adversity, and the Bible has a perspective on it that I like to make reference to. Right? Because of course we all know life is full of challenges. That's a lot of the problems that we have when we get problems on our credit report because those are a result of some of life's challenges. So, but of course, in the Bible, it teaches consistently teaches us that adversity is not meant to break us; it's meant to help us grow. Now, there are trials that we have in our lives. I don't believe that those trials are meant to be as punishment, and they shouldn't be looked at that way. That I think that they are meant to be a process to refine and strengthen and prepare us for greater things. Credit is no different. You know, the principle that we have to go through adversity to grow through adversity is deeply rooted in scripture, and it's reflected in the lives of many biblical figures who experienced trials and tribulations and emerged stronger in faith, wisdom, and character. Now I think in credit it's a similar thing. We go through these trials of fixing our credit. We've learned from our past mistakes. We learn, and when we realize how tough it is and the repercussions of making these mistakes, it sticks with us so that in the future we won't make the same mistakes, and we realize that the things that we did before make a difference. Now, I think that we should use adversity as a tool for growth, not just in credit, but again, in life. The challenges that we face shape us into stronger individuals, you know, but that adversity and you know, that work makes us stronger. Makes us more endurable, and it brings us some wisdom and some maturity along with that. So just as your muscles grow through resistance training, our faith can grow more when we're tested, and our belief and understanding in the topic of credit and all the rules that go with it, when we understand those and see firsthand how we get slapped down when we make those mistakes, I think it sticks with us and helps us long term as we go through our credit journey. Now, the harsh truth about credit restoration. First of all, it's not instant. And I know you guys want it to be. I know you wish it was. I wish it was, but it's not. One of the biggest misconceptions about credit restoration is that it happens overnight. There are many scammers and bad actors out there that prey on desperate consumers by offering guaranteed fast credit repair. But many of the methods that they are offering are either illegal or ineffective. They just don't work. Or they're trying to misapply a legal approach, and you'd have to do something illegal to use it. It's like, for instance, credit sweeps. I talked about that previously. But fast credit repair is usually ineffective and illegal. Real legal credit restoration takes time. It takes time. And it takes time in a way that may not fit the stopwatch that most people want to see. I often talk with clients about incremental improvement. There is improvement, but it takes time because we often have to set things in motion. And it's very much like that. It's setting things in motion to get things improved. It's not I'm going to get you 50 points a month until we get to where we go. No, we're doing things because at the end of the day, the focus is on the information on the report. Once you fix that, the score will come, and the score can move. It might not be 20 points a month for the next 3 months. It could be 60 points at the end, or it could be 160 points at the end, or whatever. But points is only the outcome you want at the end after we've done the work. The focus is on fixing the information and make the credit report better. I've said that many times, but I just want to reiterate that people focus on moving the needle of the score, and they think when the score doesn't move, nothing's happening, and it's quite the contrary, right? Now, again, it can take months, it can take years. I mean, I've had some clients that it took them 12 to 14 months. That's not typical, but those are some of the people who had the worst of the worst. And some of them even had one setback in the midst of another setback and things of that nature. But they showed patience and perseverance, and they kept with the journey because they kept their eye on the prize of the final result, which at the end of the day, it's not even about credit score. It's not about credit. It's about you being able to do the things that you want to do: better house, better car, vacations, things like that, and to save that money that by having cheaper financing that can lead you down the path to wealth building, because you start with the money you save being put to investment, and now you can grow that way. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Understand that the slow process may be frustrating, but it ensures that your credit is restored the right way, not through temporary fixes where things get masked and only to be brought back later after a fictitious or fraudulent investigation is initiated, only to discover that the credit is legitimate and anything that was removed temporarily gets put back on the credit. Remember that credit restoration requires discipline and change. And I know those are words that people don't want to hear. I know those are things that's hard. People don't like to do things hard. But I can tell you there is no easy. There's very little easy in credit restoration. There is some easy if you know what you're doing and you have some skills. That the skills make things that are tougher easier if you have the skills. But there is no quick fix. I've had some success, some people with some short wins on small singular items. But generally speaking, if you're in the process of restoring your credit because you have numerous issues, it takes time. And it's unfortunately, you can't schedule it out. I often get people asking me about how long does it take. I can only estimate because there is a dance going on. There is a back and forth when we're asking creditors or asking the credit bureaus to do things, undo things, change things, update things. We have to give them time to respond per the law, and then we got to hope that they respond favorably the first time. But I try to ensure that through having the right documentation that supports our position on any given thing. Fixes credit is not just about removing negative items. That's part of it. That's a big part. But it's also about changing our financial behaviors that cause the damage in the first place. This means things, you got to think about some things and think back. And when I have conversation with folks, this means that they have to really think about what happened. Oftentimes, I get it, people have financial setbacks, layoffs, and things of that nature that can catch you in a lurch. But most people kind of shrug their shoulders and say, I don't have the money, and they ignore the phone calls instead of talking to their creditors and thinking of their creditors as more like partners instead of ducking and dodging them. But when changes in your income happen, you have to adjust your spending habits. You have to learn to live within your means. And if your means is here and then it suddenly comes here, you got to bring that down with it. It's important that we learn financial literacy. Don't just say that's not my thing. Understand how credit works. I teach that. I offer a course for that. There's plenty of information on the internet and on the web, but you just got to be sure that you're getting your information from a credible source. You know, um, Places like, the credit bureaus do offer a lot of help. There's a lot of nonprofits out there, associations that can give you information if you want to know about how credit works. You can contact me. I am available. You can watch videos like these that I post here. There's a lot out there for you to learn. You just got to be careful of the source that you're getting your literacy from somebody who's giving you unbiased opinion and not someone who's trying to sell you something and they're only telling you um, about hacks and shortcuts and their simple solutions. You also got to commit to a budget and plan. Credit maintenance, it doesn't take a lot every day, all the time, but you got to go in. You got to do more than, because I speak to a lot of folks and they talk about how they go into Credit Karma or one of those and they just look at the score change. They just look at the notes that they offer them and their summary, and then they go back out. They never look at their actual credit items to see if there's anything that's being reported in error or things are being updated properly, things like that. Now, without these changes, any credit improvements will be short lived, and all of those bad habits that you're allowing to persist will lead to the same problem again. I have had more than one client who I've helped them fix their credit, and then 6 months, 7 months, a year later, they're back because they've started to do the same things that they were doing before that led them to their previous credit problems. Some of it's because they didn't recall what I told them the first time, or some of them didn't believe that that mattered until it started to actually impact their credit score. So you must also face your financial mistakes. It's fine. It's okay. We all mess up. It's not a big. We don't have to beat ourselves up. I often talk to folks on the phone, and they're very apologetic and they feel bad, which is great. That means they have a sense of pride about themselves, that they care enough about their credit to know that it could be better. But it's not anything like anything else in life. It's not something you need to continue to beat yourself up about it. You just want to realize and take stock and then learn from your mistakes and then learn how to do it differently. You know, because for many, the hardest part of credit restoration is facing the reality of their actual situation. They don't look at it. They say, oh, you know what, it's not so bad, whatever, or it is what it is. Or some people don't even look at their credit. I often talk to people who, it's so odd, they call me because they were told by someone else that they need help with their credit, but they actually went and applied for something not having looked at their credit in years because they've just ignored it. They said, I know I had a problem, but they ignored it, and rather than look at it before they went, they're finding out from a lender for the first time in a long time, confirming what they had already suspected, which was that their credit had issues. And so rather than be proactive and look at that and work on it. So first thing you got to do, obviously, review your credit reports. You want to see if you got late payments that you might not realize. You may be paying past the due date or the grace period and things like that, but you may not be paying past the calendar. So you may not actually have late payments that report on credit, just late payments that result in a late fee. See if you got collections. Sorry, my phone was ringing. See if you got collections, charge offs. Take a look and see what's there. If it's something that shouldn't be there, then that's the first step. If it's something that should be there, then we got to go through the normal channels that we do to validate and verify that stuff and see if it's something that we can get rid of. If there is an error, we should be disputing it. It's necessary, although it's often frustrating. I can tell you firsthand, there's a reason why I don't have no hair. But that process it can go smoothly, but it does require patience and persistence, because a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth when you reach out with an investor, when you reach out with a collection agent, and you say, hey, I don't know about this debt. Can you guys tell me where did it come from? So on and so forth. And then if you've determined that if it's an error, we can get rid of it. We determine that it is actually yours and that they can legally collect on it and you're legally obligated, then we can start entertaining the idea of possibly paying it to get it off our credit, and get it off your credit. We can work out a settlement or make some sort of payment arrangement, to clear the outstanding debts. Because at the end of the day, our primary goal is to clean up the credit information, remove as much negative information as possible, so that as a byproduct of that, and I use that all the time, the byproduct of that is the cleaner your credit is, the higher your scores are going to be, which we know that's the meter by which everyone measures their progress. And it's a good one. But remember, the focus is not on the credit score. The focus is on the information. And then the result is the credit score. That's the done cookies, if you will. So speaking of perseverance, I just want to talk about the role of perseverance, in our life. And if you want to talk about promises, God's promise of perseverance, but perseverance in our daily lives. That growth that I was talking about that we got to go through, it requires perseverance. You got to go through the tough thing of negotiating needs and pay off things of that way. But what oftentimes happens is people ask me, or they expect, or they get frustrated when after the first or second month, they're not seeing their credit score move much. But I'm apprising them of all the activity that's going on. They've received letters and feedback. And so we got to work through that. But what happens is, because they focus their attention solely on score, they get frustrated. But that's not uncommon, because we as human beings, we often quit in the middle of our adversity. But when we do, we miss out on the blessing and the breakthrough that's going to come at the end. When we talk about God's promise, we talk about that promise comes after a period of testing. Rebuilding your credit is no different. There's a test. All that effort and work that goes into rebuilding your credit is part of the test, but we get rewarded at the end when you follow the process, when you remain faithful, if you will. Now, why? Why? I get that all the time. Why does the hard work pay off? So what the difference? Why does it have to be hard? I know people want to believe that, marketers and advertisers will get you to spend money for anything that they promise makes it easier for you. But I'm going to tell you, easy is cool, but hard is valuable. And here's why. All of the hard work that goes into restoring your credit will help you to build lasting, positive financial habits. Because the things that you got to do to get your credit better and get your finances better, they become the way to get better and better. All of the effort that goes into restoring your credit teaches valuable lessons that prevent future financial troubles. By going through this process, people will learn how to avoid predatory loans and debt traps, which a lot of collections result from that. Things like high interest rate, low credit limit credit cards that is easy to max out and find yourself in trouble. Avoiding high interest rate predatory loans, payday loans. Some of the so-called credit builder accounts don't really build your credit that much. And they often end up, as many of them, I'm not going to say the names of any of them, but many of them, folks have actually, all they did in the process of trying to build their credit was acquire another negative account. So, you want to avoid that. And it's going to train you on how to maintain good credit by getting in the habit of things like making your payments on time and in full with installment loans as well as your credit cards. And speaking of those, also keeping the habit of keeping a low credit utilization ratio. That 30% rule, we talked about 30%, that your balance does not exceed 30% of your credit limit per account, not all of them together. Each one needs to be maintained at that 30% level. So don't believe what some of the credit monitoring companies tell you that it's an average of all of them. That's a common misconception, that your credit score works on that. Your individual credit score is built on how you manage each individual account. Not only that, each one of your individual creditors want you to see you manage their account that way. They don't feel good when you say, oh, well, this card is maxed out, but this one is zero. Because the guy that has the guy you got the zero card with, he's happy, but the guy with the maxed out card, he's nervous because he don't know if you're one payment away. Because a lot of people, it's common for people when they max out their credit card and their limit gets frozen, they get annoyed by that, and then they decide, I'm going to stop paying since I can't charge the card anymore, forgetting that the outstanding balance was the money they already spent. So you want to avoid that type of thinking. Also, you want to develop the discipline that's needed for long-term financial health, not just for credit, but how you handle your money. So these are habits that spill over into all aspects of your life. All the work that goes into restoring your credit will open up real opportunities for you. Whether you're someone who's trying to buy a house, your dream home, whether you're someone that's trying to get a better car, you want to be able to have room and finances to go on nice vacations. You may want to start a business. Those opportunities can happen. Some of them can happen without better credit, but it's certainly much better with it. Because having a strong credit profile opens doors that are now would normally be closed to you. Because with good credit, you can get qualified for a better mortgage rate, saving you thousands of dollars a year and tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the loan, just from something as simple as having a 6.5% credit score interest rate versus an 8.5% interest rate on a mortgage. That can save you thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. And on car loans, it can save you tens, $100 a month when you can borrow at 3% instead of borrowing at 10% or higher. Really bad credit people, you're 16, 20%. So that's real money. You can also have access to business funding and investment opportunities, because I will tell you this. Yes, there is plenty of business funding out there that doesn't require personal guarantees, but those are for established businesses. If you're starting a new business and you don't have revenue and you're not established business, you can still get business funding, but it's going to require a personal guarantee. Or even if it doesn't require a personal guarantee, they're going to at least want to look at your personal credit to see how you manage that. Because if you can't manage your personal credit, they're not going to trust you to manage business credit. So that's another aspect that has to be considered if you're in that arena. And again, you could take advantage of lower interest rates and save thousands of dollars over time with business credit also, and that initial credit, but mostly the personal credit, because there is one business credit bureau that is a blend of business credit and personal credit. It's called the SSBA. For those of you in the business space know what I'm talking about, business funding and business credit space. Now, all of these benefits are only possible when your credit is restored correctly, responsibly, and permanently. And when I say permanently, I mean the permanentability of these particular debts where that obviously you don't want to create new ones. You want to create a new negative anyway. You want to create new positives from that point on. Now, how do we create that long-term stability? By first breaking the cycle of bad credit and breaking the cycle of bad actions. It's because it's not just about short-term gains. It's not about a credit bump to try to get you there. It's about long-term financial security. It's about real credit restoration, helping people to avoid repeated financial struggles, to set up better for financial future for themselves and their families. I know that sounds melodramatic, but it is what it is. And establishing generational wealth by teaching financial literacy to their children. Because a lot of people talk these days about wealth generation and generational wealth. And I think it's absolutely important, it's paramount. But understand that generational wealth is not just about the money. It's about the knowledge. Because if you want to give people generational wealth, if you want to give wealth to people, you have to understand what wealth is. And wealth is not just about money. It's about having the skills to know what to do with money to set yourself up for um, not being cash starved and not being having access. The beautiful thing about credit when it comes to wealth, I know a lot of people think that credit is the opposite because credit is debt and then wealth is money and income. But understand there's two different kinds of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. And mostly that is the result of not the type of debt, but what is the debt being used for? Wealthy people don't use their own money to finance things. They use other people's money, which is essentially what credit is. The key is that you're using your credit for something that's going to make you money or create wealth for you, not just on buying stuff, not just for consumer consumption spending. And so that you got a good, decent income and you got good credit, that credit can leverage that income. But again, I'm getting going off a tangent and I promise I'm going to stay on point here. Now, remember that quick fixes might provide temporary relief. In most cases, they do, but real restoration ensures stability for years to come. Because again, you learn how to fix your credit the right way, you learn how to manage your credit the right way, and then you'll have good credit all the time, and you don't have to wonder about that. I mean, you don't want to be that guy. You want to say, I don't have to go to the dealer. I'm not saying me, but I'm saying with good credit, you don't have to go to the dealer and wonder if you're going to get approved or wonder if they're going to let you get a car and let them manipulate you into getting the car. When your credit is solid and you got a good relationship with your own lender, you go to the car dealer and you tell them what car you want. You don't worry about the payment. You just tell them how much is the price. You can focus on the car and the price. You don't worry. They don't let them use the financing to influence your purchase decision. But again, getting off topic there. So what is the alternative to real credit restoration? The easy route? Well, I'll tell you why that doesn't work. The easy route fails. Even if it works in the short term, it's going to fail in the long term. Let's talk about credit repair scams and fixes. Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I just want you guys to have the information. Whether you hire me, or you hire somebody else, or whether you do your credit yourself, you want to have the information so that at least no matter who you hire, you can make a good decision. Because you don't need to become a credit expert, although I think you should try it too. You at this point, you at least want to be knowledgeable enough to know when somebody, you know, is telling you some false stuff. It's like with your car. You don't need to be a mechanic to know when your car ain't running right. You don't need to be a mechanic to know that when somebody tell you your engine is failing because your tires are flat, that don't make sense because you understand the tires don't have nothing to do with the engine. So you want to have basic information and some knowledge so you can make a good financial decision and and not be led astray. So many people get drawn to those people on the internet. I mean, I market on the internet. You guys know that. But many people are drawn to those credit repair services that promise rapid results. I never promise rapid results because I just want to be honest with you guys. I want to be transparent with you guys. I want you guys to know that my saying that it's not fast is not because I don't know the techniques that they know that are fast. I know that the techniques that they promise don't exist or don't really work. However, I'm going to tell you that those services often rely on some shady tactics. Things like fraudulent disputes that temporarily remove negative items only to have them reappear later. I'm telling you, I've seen it. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to tell you about one real quick, and you can even Google it. Google about credit repair girl in Texas who fraudulent credit sweeps. And here's what to do. I'm going to explain to you real quick. I'm not going to go too long. Credit sweeps is a method that we use for someone who has been a victim of identity theft. And what we do is we make sure when they've been a victim and they discover they got all the stuff on their credit that came from identity theft, I advise them to go to their local municipality, their local city, file a police report with the local police. Then I tell them to go to their state attorney general's office and file a identity theft form. Then I tell them to go to the IRS and fill out the form for that, and with the Federal Trade Commission. So that way they put on record at the local level, the state level, and the federal level that their file they've been a victim of identity theft and that their consumer profile is compromised. I tell them to do that. Once you do that, it is by law under the FACTA Act that credit bureau's position is if someone has gone through the trouble of filing a police report with the local authorities, they give us the benefit of the doubt that we were in fact a victim of identity theft. And so that we let them know all the accounts that were fraudulent, they immediately sweep them off your credit report. No time for it. They do that, and then they launch the investigation, and they go to the creditors because they tell the creditors, consumers filed a police report saying they're a victim of identity theft. You need to, here are all the accounts that they named. You need to go back and check your paperwork and look at the ID and all the information you gathered and verify that the person you extended credit to was really this consumer. Now, of course, we know if the person was a victim of identity theft, whatever ID they got on file is not going to be our real customer. It's going to be a fake if they got one at all. If they got signatures, their signatures are probably not going to match our client, our identity theft victim. So you get the benefit of the doubt with the credit bureaus when it comes to identity theft. And so everything gets swept away. What's happening is you got credit repair purveyors out there. They say they can do credit sweeps on anybody. They say credit sweeps can be done even if you haven't been a victim of identity theft. So they're taking a legitimate method and they're misapplying it to a different situation. They can't use credit. The only way they can use credit sweeps to clear your credit off of your credit, if you haven't been a victim of identity theft, you're going to have to do one or two things. They're either going to file a police report in your behalf, which is illegal, or they're going to prompt you to file a false police report and you say, well, I may have been a victim, and so you kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so that will happen quickly. But guess what? If you haven't been a victim of identity theft, they're going to do an investigation. They're going to pull up the paperwork. They're going to show documentation with your ID. They're going to show your signatures. They're going to say, no, this wasn't ID theft. This is legit. And then they're just going to put it back on your credit report after a short period of time. The problem you run into is you run the risk of criminal charges for filing false police report. Now, the girl in Texas that I was talking about, she took it one step further. She had a friend or a cousin who worked in a local police department, sheriff's department. That friend was able to get from their computer system the template that they use for creating police reports. This woman was charging people thousands of dollars, guaranteeing credit sweeps. And what she was doing was she was creating false, fake police reports, fake copies that she would submit to the credit bureaus, misleading them into thinking this person actually filed a police report, and then they would sweep everything off the credit based on this false report. Well, she did it for 2 years. She made a few $1 million, but she was 26 or 27 at the time, and she now doing like 15 years in prison, and they took all her money because she took a legitimate method and she did something illegal. So be careful of people talking about credit sweeps. If they're talking about credit sweeps and they've said nothing to you about identity theft, they're either going to promising you that based on that misappropriation of that method, or they plan on doing something fraudulent and you could be a party to that. So be careful. Other things like trying to get you a new social security number or a CPN, a credit profile number. Now, that's totally illegal. Now, what is a CPN? CPNs are credit profile numbers are used in very extreme cases, like, for example, and I did the research, and so I know about the background of this. If you have someone who is in like witness protection, I know that sounds far-fetched, but it does happen, or someone who an extreme case of domestic violence where they're hiding from a very dangerous ex-spouse or stalker of some kind. And so that person had a hold of their social security number. So they get rid of that, they change their identity and they give them a CPN number. But that's designed, or sometimes you have celebrities that want to have an alternate identity. If they're so famous that they can't use their real name anywhere, they'll get a CPN and use that as a false identity, an AKA, if you will. And those are used for those examples. The use of a CPN for anything else is illegal. And companies out there, you don't see them too much anymore, but there was one point in time where you had hundreds of companies who were claiming they was charging people money saying they were going to get them a CPN. Some of them were actually getting CPNs, but they were trying, basically, you have to apply for it and get it. And you have to basically tell them you fall into one of those buckets that I described in order for you to successfully get one. Again, more lies, more fraud. So if somebody tell you they can get you new credit with a new identity by anything, CPN or any other method, that's illegal. It's not going to be acceptable. Misleading claims that provide false hope without any real solutions. Now, in my restoration process, I have solutions for no matter what's on your credit. Now, granted, some of the solutions are not the most favorable ones that people might want to entertain when some of those solutions, might require some repayment, but it is a solution. It is a viable solution. So be careful of people giving you false hope without any real solutions or giving you solutions based on fraud. Now, I know these sound great, and if you say you want to do something in a hurry, in this day and age, we want things done fast and everything. So I had to check my mic. So I thought I heard it beep. Sorry about that. But these shortcuts might seem cool. They might be appealing, but they typically, if they work at all, they typically don't last for long because by the time all the smoke clears, your credit usually gets restored back to what it was. And in some cases, they can even make your financial situation even worse in the long run. So the next thing I always encourage people to do is not ignore the problem, because when you ignore the problems, that usually leads to even worse financial disaster, because for those who choose to ignore the credit issues, the consequences can be severe. I mean, they can be bad. Number one, some of the things that just slow burn, things like higher interest rates, which cost you thousands more in loans and credit card payments over time, just bleeding you out slowly. I mean, when your credit's challenged, you got limited housing and employment opportunities. I've talked about this in previous videos. There's a lot of times if you're trying to get some kind of housing program, you got to have good credit. They do credit checks in some cases. If you're trying to buy, obviously they do a credit check. Some jobs, some professions, you got to have good credit to be in that profession. If you're in a job where you're dealing with finance, other people's money, making judgments, they look at your credit to determine how you handle your finance. Because how can they trust you to handle their finances, their books, their accounting if you can't handle your own? How do they expect you to make good judgments on behalf of the business and the company, the firm, and the department if you can't make good judgment about your own personal stuff? So those things have impact. not to mention just the increased financial stress of having credit issues, of having debt collectors calling and writing and sending emails. And then when you ignore it and hide from them, that just creates stress for you. And then I've talked to a lot of people that say, oh, I stopped looking at my credit. I just got tired of looking at it. I didn't know what to do or didn't want to do anything about it. But understand this. Yes, there's a rule about expiration of debt. You know, everybody quote the 7-year rule, even though most people never know when the 7 years start, but it does exist for certain situations. But just understand this, and I promise you, bad credit does not go away on its own. It won't. You got to do something about it. And usually, like most things in life, the longer you ignore it, the harder it is to fix. So I say that to say this. All the challenges and all the difficulty that goes with credit restoration, yes, it sucks. But don't look at that adversity as an obstacle, because I don't believe any adversity in life is an obstacle. I believe there are opportunities, because every challenge that we endure has the potential to shape us into stronger, wiser, and more faithful people. You know, if you want to attribute this part of this is going through that, just like what God, the challenges and tribulations that God have to go through in all things, credit is no different. The trouble of doing it is pain, but it's not wasted pain. It's pain that we can use to build character, increase our belief and understanding in the system, and prepare us for greater things. Because if you get your credit together and you demonstrated that you've come back, and then in most cases, after an amount of time, all the negative stuff that's on your credit dies away and gets older and age out, as we call it. And then eventually you don't even see that anymore. Or whatever you had going on bad way back when, it disappears. Even bankruptcy only shows up on your credit for 10 years. After that, people don't see it anymore. And you know, all your negative accounts after 2 years, after a year, it's not impacting your credit anymore. After 2 years, it doesn't even show up anymore. So time does heal those wounds. We just got to get there first for payment, but the other things we just have to tackle. So by going through that adversity with patience, perseverance, and some faith in the system, some faith in the process, we ultimately will grow through that. We will emerge more educated, more refined, more strengthened, and have a better understanding for how credit maintenance works. We'll be positioned for the greater opportunities and the promises that come with the rewards that come with the good things that come with having good credit. But you got to get there. There ain't no shortcuts. You didn't ruin your credit overnight. You're not going to fix it overnight. So yes, real credit restoration sucks. It's not easy, but that's why it works. The time, effort, and discipline that's required to rebuild your credit ensures that the results that you get do last. They're, for lack of a better word, permanent. Not only that, it's meaningful, because when you realize and it might give yourself a pat on the back when you say, whoa, that was a journey. I went through it and I got it, and you should be proud of yourself. But you'll have a much better appreciation for that good credit, and you'll have an appreciation for managing it. And nothing else, you'll say, I don't want to go through that again. And that'll be enough to keep you on the straight and narrow and want you to be better, so you don't have to go through that again. Now, while all those shortcuts and scams do promise fast results, and that sounds great, it would be great if it did. Just remember, only true financial accountability leads to lasting improvement. And you can't have true financial accountability if you're trying to hire somebody who's promising to wipe away all of your debt without any ramifications from you. If they're promising to get rid of your debt that you owe, like they said in New Jack City, you owe, Pookie. Is that what Ice-T said? You owe. And if you owe, sure, the things that you legally owe, you should work to it. I get it. Money is tight. Everybody, but remember, it's important to remember that at the end of the day, you owe this. And I know that's not what you want to hear. I know people don't want to hear when I say that. We get rid of what we can that you don't have to pay. But at the end of the day, if there are items that are holding you back that you legitimately owe, you should come to terms with that. And trust me, whatever it costs you in the short term, you will see it. You will get 10 times, 100 times more later on. Those better financial opportunities, the freedom, the stability, all of those other things that you enjoy when you wake up and you're looking at your house that you worked hard to earn the money to get and you worked hard to fix your credit with, yet you're living the dream, you're living the life that you want, are worth the effort. Not for me, but for you. So I say start today. Take control of your future. And again, whether you hire me or somebody like me, or you take it upon yourself, take that journey, take it by the hands, make that journey, and start fixing, start restoring, start, you know, enjoying that. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I know this is not exactly on point with credit, but I don't know who y'all need to hear this, but I think we can all benefit from it. So take care.